Hi, I'm Natalie Jill, fat loss expert turned high performance coach. When odds are stacked against us, how do we shift and create everything from nothing? How do we level up when we aren't feeling it yet or we've had a big setback? On this podcast, I'll be talking to some of the most inspiring and courageous men and women on this planet who, at their worst, learned how to achieve success greater than they ever dreamed possible, leveling up and creating everything from nothing. When Dana Cavalea's dream of becoming a pro athlete was shattered, he decided that there had to be some blessing and opportunity in his disappointment. And at age 19, he accepted a job cleaning up towels and being a water boy with the Yankees. Now, Dana never looked at this as beneath him. In fact, he looked at it as an opportunity to serve and add value to some of the best athletes in the world. He decided that he'd add value, listen, and learn. Now, while listening and truly living with the mentality of serving, Dana found an opportunity to add even more value. He started running the athletes through some core workouts that he had come up with. His humble attitude, constant wanting to add value, and his high levels of intuition propelled him into a coaching position. Now, Dana didn't just become any coach. He became a champion coach. Dana spent 12 years with the New York Yankees and even won a World Series in 2009. Throughout his career, Dana has had the opportunity to train and coach the greats that include the likes of Alex Rodriguez and Derek Jeter. In addition to working with high-level athletes, coaches, CEOs, and executives, he's an international speaker, consultant helping corporate workforces, sports teams, universities, organizations, and more to optimize their overall performance through his 5 drivers of performance. I am thrilled for you to meet Dana today and learn how he continually levels himself and others up to create everything from nothing. I'm so excited to talk to you today about not only how you leveled up, Dana, but how you continually coach and get athletes into peak performance and have them level up. So thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So take me back a little bit. First, how did you even get into coaching? How did that become who you are?
Well, I always say that a lot of people that get into coaching are underperforming former players.
Oh, so, I had not heard that.
Yeah. So I actually, I was a baseball player. I had dreams of taking the field in New York, in the Bronx, and, joining the New York Yankees as a player. Unfortunately, my talent set didn't allow me to get there. So I went to the University of South Florida down in Tampa. I caught wind that the New York Yankees happened to have spring training down there. I grew up in New York. I was tired of the cold and I needed a change. I started off my college career going to a small school here in New York, and I was just, I wasn't feeling it. I guess I just needed a change. Sometimes we go through life and we need changes. And I had this vision for myself that change and the next chapter for me was down in Florida. So I went and got a degree in sports medicine, joined the program down there. And, and I caught wind that the Yankees were coming to town for spring training. I would actually go up to the spring training complex and I'd pull out my flip phone. That's how long ago this was. And I'd whip out my phone. I'd be taking pictures through a chain link fence, sending them home to my friends and family in New York. And I said, hey, look, there's Jeter. Hey, there's this guy. Mm-hmm. And, when I got back to my school, actually later that day, I had the strength coach for the football team reach out to me and say, hey, Dana, would you have any interest in, working with the Yankees and, basically just cleaning up the weight room, handing out waters and towels? And I said, that would be amazing. I just got back from there, but, I had a chance. Next thing you know, I'm at Yankee Stadium the next day down in Steinbrenner Field, it was called, down in Tampa. I pull my car in. I walk up to the desk and they say, hey, are you Dana Cavalea? I said, yeah. They throw a credential around my neck, put me in Yankee gear. And next thing you know, that same field I was taking pictures of through a chain link fence, I'm standing on in the middle of a team stretch the next day. And, there's Jeter, there's Pettit, there's all these superstars. And here I am, a 19-year-old kid who, just basically had a life-changing experience in 24, to 36 hours. And that's actually how I got into coaching. I was an underperforming player, realized that I wasn't going to get to the big leagues in Major League Baseball based on my baseball talent. So I had to find another way to get there. And that was, through coaching. And, when I first started that experience I just told you about, I was an intern. I was 19. I really was raw. I knew nothing. And This was dating back to about the year
Mm-hmm.
2001.
So you didn't know you wanted to be a coach. You just know you wanted to be in the presence of them. Is that what I'm hearing? So you just
Yeah,
decided you weren't going to play, but if I could be around them, if I could help, if I could learn from them.
exactly. And what I did realize is, as again, somebody that was, trying to get every piece of his talent, take advantage of that, I realized that if I could train, I can get better. And that's what I did. So I maximized my own talent, my own potential through training. So I kind of fell in love with the training process and realizing how you can improve your physicality, which would in turn improve your mindset, and you would be a better player. And I said, wow, what if I could teach other people this? And that's how I got into coaching. I started, again, as an intern for free, working at my college, University of South Florida, with the football team. And then the next thing you know, I'm now with the Yanks. And it was really it was planned, but it wasn't planned. It was a little bit of circumstance and fate all mixed together, and it worked out for me.
You just said something interesting. If I train, I could get better. So how did you decide not to do that for yourself? Because you said you realized you weren't going to make it there, but why not adopt that mentality for yourself versus now I'm going to teach others to do it?
I actually had it for myself, but I trained as much as I could. I took my headspace as far as I can go. I just didn't have the talent to get to the next level. So like the difference, the talent gap between college and the professional ranks is small, but it's huge. And I think that's the same in a lot of parts of life. It's there's small gaps, but they could be very big gaps. And it's our job to know how we can close that gap and how far we can actually close that gap. And I believe that everybody has a ceiling. And I know that goes against and it's contrary to a lot of the things that we hear out there. I mean, you can persevere and you can push, but there are certain ceilings that exist. For me, if I trained every day like I did, and I worked on my mindset and I did all those things and I had great coaches, I wasn't able to hit certain pitches that were thrown to me as a player. I wasn't able to do it. So I had to tap out, and that actually became, a resistance point for me in my life. And I said, you know what? I'm going to try to push through this resistance as much as I can. But in pushing through that resistance, it actually pushed me into the field of coaching. So it's like push, push, push. It pushed back and pivoted me into what I was, I guess, supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
and I've had a lot of fulfillment from that, more so than I think if I was a player.
It's interesting. It's like that you saying, I'm sure you've heard about like life happens for us, not to us. So I'm imagining at this first reality of like, okay, I'm not going to be a pro player myself. What did that feel like? And did you struggle with that at all? Or it sounds like, because the way you told it was super quick. I'm now a coach, but I'm imagining there was some type of struggle there with yourself.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know. I think maybe at different points in my life, it shows up as, stress and anxiety at times. So I never maybe formally grieved it. But, I was also fortunate enough to be around that same game that I was trying to get to the highest level at. I made a career out of that game at the highest level. So I was around it. I was in it. The only thing I couldn't do was actually step on the field for 9 innings. But I was living the life of the players, and I was living, that professional life that I had dreamed of. Again, I didn't have the accolades that I would have had as a player, but I found fulfillment in helping other people achieve their dreams and their goals. And that was something that just kept paying me back dividends day in, day out, season after season. And it's something that I continue to do so, or receive benefits from. So it's, it wasn't something that struck me as, hey, Dana, you failed here, because I really won. I won big on this.
I love that you're sharing this, because I know for a fact that so many people get stuck on a perceived failure. Like they had one mission and then they're not looking at the opportunity of what else is there. And you actually did the opposite. You had something that could have been a failure, but instead of that paralyzing you and stopping you, you shifted into an opportunity.
Yeah. And that, I think, that's the theme of life for many, whether they choose to acknowledge it or not. I mean, I opened 5 training facilities. I was creating a franchisable brand as well while I was still with the team. And you know what? After 5 years, that didn't work out the way I wanted to. So again, now that pushes me into another space. So every time you are failing, what the world would call a failure, it's oftentimes setting up a big win for you. So that's what I've seen. And I think those that, we glorify and that we see have really made it if you go through their story line by line, they've actually gotten their butt kicked quite a bit. They just chose not to focus on that and stay in that space for too long. It's like, saying, you know what, I got my butt kicked, but what's next? And I think that's the perseverance and the mentality of success and achievement overall, you know?
Truly. So you became an intern, and then you start seeing this opportunity for coaching. How did it actually transition into coaching? And how did you learn to be a good coach?
Yeah. So I have a couple stories to wrap around that. But, you know, this, again, I'm going back to around the year 2000, 2001. This is when the term core was just coming out. So like I said, I was 19 when I started. I really didn't know anything. And I said, you know what? There's this word core that's floating out there. And the guy I'm working under doesn't really know much about it. The players know it as a buzzword and they don't know much about it. I'm going to go home and I'm going to study everything having to do with the core, from, you know, the physiology and how everything works to the exercises associated with. I wanted to come up with the best stuff. So whenever a player would walk into the weight room, again, I'm formerly the water and towel and clean the equipment guy. And now I would say, hey, can I take you through your core? And believe it or not, I was a young guy and I felt that I was very personable, and players would give me a shot and they'd say, yeah, take us through it. So I'd get these high profile players to give me a shot, take me through these little pieces of those core routine. Boom, take them through routine. After that, I had nothing left in my bag of tricks. But I started off by just offering the one thing that I knew, and I got really good at that one thing, offered it to these guys, they bit the hook, and then that opened up the relationship. And when they started to trust me more and more, I was able to actually learn on the go and learn on the fly and deliver more and more. But
yeah,
you know, again, I was totally overmatched. I mean, I'm dealing with a 19-year-old kid dealing with guys that, you know, had, you know, 50, $100+ million. You know, they had fame galore. They were playing, you know, in the Big Apple, and I had to step up to the plate. And there was a lot of fake it till you make it, but I always leaned on my character, and I leaned on just the areas that I knew I had strength in, and that was, you know, get competent at something and deliver, you know?
You know what, Dana, I love what you're saying here. And there's just a couple gems that you've said. I hope people are really picking up and hearing this, because what I heard you say without you saying it so much is that you lost your dream, but instead of making that a failure, you were going to be a water and a towel boy. You put your ego aside, you're jumping in, you looked at that with opportunity and big eyes. You then studied and added value to people, which is by studying the core and adding value to them. They began to trust you. So you formed trust. And that is what truly ended up being this great opportunity for you. And I think so many other people would just shut down and snub their nose to, I'm not going to be a towel and a water boy or any of that. And you did none of that and actually added value, which is huge.
Yeah. And to be quite honest with you, I'm still a towel and a water boy. In my mind, I always feel like if I have that, maintain that blue collar nature and realize, listen, nothing's going to be handed to you. Just keep going out
mentality. There. Servant's mentality.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, exactly. Just go out there and do things for the right reasons. And all of a sudden, boom, more doors open up. And that's been really the trajectory of my entire career. And it's just, you know, the doors just keep opening up. And I just keep putting myself out there and saying, how do you help? How do you help? How do you help?
So good.
That's been,
so
yeah.
Good. Okay, so take us into coaching now, because so obviously you've totally blown away the world with your coaching style. So what makes a great coach now? And then what are the things that you've picked up and learned from the players? Like, what makes a solid player? Like, what kind of coaching do they need?
What makes a great coach is somebody that can listen and can understand and also see what somebody's going through and dealing with without the other person actually verbalizing it. So to be a great coach, you have to have really high levels of intuition and feel, and you need to be able to really kind of align with that other person and understand their body language, understand, again, the unspoken word. And if you could do that, you now have the basis of what your coaching relationship will be built on. And for me, that was the gift. You know, I am, as much as I'm a strength and performance coach, and I'm, you know, trying to get guys bigger and faster and stronger and more mobile and all that, I also am a healer in what I do, in the fact that, you know, a technique that I use is to help rid the body of discomfort and pain. So if I don't understand,
please share that. What is that?
yeah. So as a high performer, if you're a high performing athlete, if you're a high performing executive, CEO, leader, or somebody that aspires to be, right, you're typically going to be somebody that is exposed to higher levels of stress,
Yes.
right? And just stress in general, stress of, hey, I'm a type A high horsepower person and I gotta get this done. That sort of mentality. But that stress that we have, it has to go somewhere. So oftentimes, if we don't express it, and a lot of people don't express it, where does it go? Where does it go? It has to go somewhere, right? So it packs itself into the body. It packs itself into muscle tissue. It packs itself into the gut. It packs itself down. And in sport, it manifests itself as tension, overall tension in the body. Okay. So if you are somebody that's loaded with tension, you're also loaded with injury risk, right? Mm-hmm. So what I would do is, again, through working with these guys, through a lot of, you can call it cognitive behavioral therapy and dialogue and talking and understanding what's going on in their life, that's the first assessment of saying, hey, all right, is he firing at 100% or is he packing tension somewhere? And then it's my job to go and find it. So through a lot of like trigger point techniques and a lot of, manual therapy and tissue work, we were able to find areas in the body that would house this tension. For most people, you can simply say, well, it's in their shoulders. When somebody comes behind you, they squeeze your shoulders and you say, there's tension packed there. Mm-hmm. But the greater the tension and the greater the stress you have in your life, that tension goes to all different places. And that stress, it could be anywhere in the body. So we have to find it. And most importantly, we have to release it. So that was my technique. Release it physically and also release it by getting them to understand through communication. And again, I'm dealing with guys that don't feel very comfortable, sharing their weaknesses. These are gladiators that I work with. They're gladiators. Yeah. They're not going to tell you the weaknesses. So you have to find them. And that's the same I found even too in the world of business. Same thing.
So do you do this yourself with them? Like, are you the one talking to them and getting it out that way and actually working on them physically? Or do you have other people that you do that for you?
I do that. I do that. And what I found is, as you release more and more tension in the body, all of a sudden the words start coming out more and more because you're taking somebody into a state of relaxation and you're kind of downshifting their nervous system in a way that they haven't experienced in a long time. So it's creating an open forum of, let's say, vulnerability, and they're able to now feel not threatened because you've released their physical tension and their physical pain, and it gets them to go, this is safe here. And then they have the opportunity to express. So before I get to like the speed, strength, and the power and what I call the sexy stuff, this is where I start the journey. And that's what creates a really dynamic experience.
Wow. So do all of your players that you coach know this with you? Do they do this with you?
Oh yeah. And in different in different degrees. And with some players, it's not a public announcement. Like, okay, here's this system that I'm going to take you through. And, you just organically take them through it. You start with a conversation, and then you before you know it, they're going through this process. I try not to I'm not going to disclose the whole process to them because they may feel feel a little bit manipulated, and I want it to be very organic and to unfold on its own.
So you basically it's like, we're going to work on you, and then this stuff is going to come out and you're going to direct it out, but you don't start with that or it'll run.
Yeah. I lead with hey, we're going to keep you healthy. We're going to keep you on the field. You're going to feel really good. This is I lead with all the performance indicators that they're looking for and the performance markers that they want to enhance. And then this is step one of the process. Then I come in with this.
Got it.
So,
gosh. Sneaky. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm looking at your book right now, which, by the way, I'm going to put a link. Everyone has to check out your book, Habits of a Champion. And I like that you're underlying where nobody becomes a champion by accident. Can we dive into some of those habits? Because I would love takeaways too that people can apply in their real life, because I know even athlete mentality, athlete champions some of those principles apply for people in business, life, anything that becomes successful.
Yeah. So when I wrote this book, just a little backstory on it, there was a couple things driving it. Number one was, I would read a lot of, as a coach, you're always trying to better yourself as a leader. You're always trying to better your mentality, and you're always looking for, little nuggets and pieces that you can take and add to your overall practice. So I would read a lot of these self-help books, leadership books, and I would say, I read this book and I feel so far from goal. I feel so far. Success is to my right. I feel like it's 10 miles to my right. When I'm around very successful people, both in the world of business and in the world of sport, every single day. I mean, I'm talking the top 1%. And I'm saying, when I'm with these guys, I don't feel that far away outside of the talent that they have. But some of these books would make me feel as if I was so far off, and that if I didn't adopt these principles, I wasn't going to make it. So I said, you know what? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a book that's about the habits of the champions that I was fortunate enough to work with personally, day in and day out, and show people that it's not about finding this magic formula, right? It's really just about these little things that make you a champion. And a lot of us have those championship attributes right inside of us already. We just have to make the decision that we're going to choose to activate them, or if we're just going to choose to go about life the way we decide to go about life. And some of us, how we're brought up, we have a lot of these traits that we're executing on and firing on every single day, but some of us don't. We choose not to. So there's one example in the book that says, if somebody doesn't respect your time, they don't respect you. And that was spoken by Derek Jeter. And Derek Jeter would always say, listen, if I'm going to be even a minute late, I'm going to call or text. Because if I don't do that, I'm not respecting your time. And if I don't respect your time, I don't respect you. And there's a story wrapped around that about a player that left me in the weight room waiting for him for an hour.
Wow.
And was a no-show. And that catalyzed that story. But Derek, everything's about an appointment, and everything's about respect, about being on time. If you're not on time, call. It's the right thing to do. And that shows that I respect you, you respect me, and we now can play together. So that's one of the stories. There's another chapter in there called Fit to Win. And so many people in sport, less so in sport, but more so that I saw in business, think that they could just go out and play the most competitive sport in the world, which is business, and be untrained physically. So how many business people do we see running around airports, and they're out of shape? They have an Annie Ann's pretzels in one hand and they have a Coke in the other, and they're running to their flight. They're tripping over their briefcase or whatever they're dragging with them. And they're trying to build a business for themselves or somebody else. Like, that's not the person we want representing us, because eventually those lifestyle habits and behaviors, it's going to cost that person energy. It's going to cost them health. They're not going to represent themselves or the company the right way. So Fit to Win is saying simply a question: are you fit to win? And then I go through the, I guess we'll say if you're not fit to win, here's some of the things that could happen to you, and here's the negative. So I break it down into little micro lessons that could be picked up anywhere, any chapter, and you can pull something out of it. Yeah.
So I have a few specific questions about your book, of things you brought up that I'd love to dive into. So you said off days are off days. What do you mean by that?
So how many of us actually schedule off days? Most people I see, they go and go and go, or they don't respect a full day off. They're always trying to get a little bit of work in, and a little bit here and a little bit there. So the best athletes in the world, they take the day. They take the day off. They don't do anything work related, because that's a day for them to just totally unwind. And I also had a client that I work with. He's a multi-billionaire, and he takes off every Friday afternoon through Sunday, and no technology Friday through Saturday evening.
Wow.
And he said that's a time for him to restore his body and his mind, and spend time with his family. Yeah.
I do believe that I have seen a common thread with ultra successful people they take that time fully off to resharpen the tool, because if you're constant go, 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 you're never 110% when you are on. You're always just getting by.
And the scary part is you don't know, you start to forget what off is because you're always partially on. And I use an example of like an electronic, like what would happen if you were to leave an electronic on for 5 years at a time, 10 years at a time, eventually it burns out. Well, the same thing happens with us as people. We just acknowledge it sometimes, or sometimes we don't, and we push through it. And now in the corporate world, there's all these talks of, work-life balance and, mindfulness and all of these phrases that come about as a result of us just simply not having any balance in our life. So off days are off days. And, some players, I was just with one of our players a couple of weeks ago, and he said, listen, you know what my favorite days were? My favorite days were off days on the road. He said, I wouldn't even get out of bed. I'd watch movies, I'd have room service, and I would just totally relax, and I'd play my best games the next day.
Dana, why do you think it's so ingrained in people that they no days off, like have to keep going? What does that come from, do you think? Because I think so many people are that way.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from just our culture. I mean, in general, think about you just taking an off day. You're saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to take an off day today, and it's a Saturday. I'm just going to take a day off. Saturday used to be a normal day off, Saturday and Sunday. But now we're constantly flooded with messaging, especially through the social channels where, if you're not working, somebody else is, or hustle is coming across your feed, or you're just somebody that's trying to take a day off, and now you're looking at your feed and you're seeing what somebody else has. And now you're saying, well, look what I have. This person, must be working harder than me. And it gets you from relaxed mode to engaged mode. So it's a dangerous space that we live in because we're constantly in comparison to others, and it engages us and it keeps us engaged and it keeps us feeling like, we got to do more. But I work with a lot of CEOs and executives, and I asked them this. I said, hey, can you define success for me in your terms? And you'll be amazed at how many people can't even do that. And that's like one of the first exercises I do when I work with, the corporate population, and they can't do it, or they'll pull somebody else's definition, and you have to say, no, what's your definition? They can't define it. So we're constantly, in this loop, and we're in this wheel. And I believe that that's inhibiting us from being able to relax and fear. And, the classic fear, am I enough? Am I going to be able to make it? Do I have enough money packed away? All of these fear-driven questions and responses keep us engaged. And, especially for those of us that live, where you live or where I live in New York, it's a pressure cooker.
Yeah, and I can completely relate to, I think you just described me. I think you must have been spying on me this weekend because that's what I do. Okay, today is totally off. Then you scroll Instagram or Facebook and you're like, oh, but they're doing this, they're doing that. I need to be doing, and the next thing you know, you're back in it. So I'm speaking of myself, and I know that I'm not alone on that.
No, you're definitely not. And how many people actually go on their social media and feel somewhat tired after being on there? Yeah. I know I do.
Yeah,
if I'm on there too long. Yeah. And a classic thing, another exercise that I do with people is, listen, tell me the last 5 things you saw on social media and give me some details of it. What did you see? Tell me about it and describe it for me. Last 5 things. 9 out of 10 people can't tell you. So what does that mean? It's like
really
So we're taking in content, but what's happening? The brain is not processing the content because there's too much coming at us too quick that there's a discrepancy in speed. So our scrolling speed versus our processing speed, they're disconnected. They're not aligned.
Yeah.
We're scrolling faster than we can process, but we keep scrolling. It's a bizarre thing.
It's so good. I never had it really described like that. And you're so on point with that. And it's just adding extra junk into it's worse than TV, I feel like. At least with TV, you've got like one thing at a time. This is like quick changes of things that we can't control.
Exactly. I mean, there's not control out there that could turn the channel as fast as I've seen it, like scroll through, the feed. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. But that creates anxiety,
Oh, for sure. For sure. And the not doing enough symptoms. And then, and you know, and I also am willing to bet that most people that can break away, when you truly do just do your own thing and you're out in nature, or whatever it is that you're doing that's not work, that's probably when your best ideas actually come, when you're not comparing to somebody
Yep.
else, when you're clear.
100%. And the other thing is too, when it comes to that whole comparison game, that's the fastest way to not achieve champion performances is comparing to other people, because you're going to at some point along the line, even if you are copying them and it's working, you're going to find that you're out of alignment with yourself, and you're going to say, you know what, man, I'm not truly, doing what I feel like I should do, every nuance of it. So it's all about self-expression, and that's the key, and that's what makes athletes so great. Is they're raw, they're in your face, they say things that are rough and could cause a little bit of conflict, but that's who they are, and they own it 100%. If you don't like me, too bad.
And I'd also be willing to bet that these athletes that are uber successful, they're actually doing the work and practicing. They're not on social media posting about it and comparing about it. So
no, exactly. No, they're just, they're living their life. They're living their life and, sharing some of their stories, but they're not scrolling back. They're not looking at what other people are doing. Because, again, that's where I think some of the high levels of confidence that they have, and even a little bit of ego, and a dab of the narcissism comes in, because they really don't care what anybody else is doing.
Yeah, no, it's probably serving them well, though, to not care. So you also mentioned sometimes you have to go backwards to move forward. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So, we're so conditioned to always be running forward and running hard. And then all of a sudden, sometimes, like I said earlier, you smash that wall, and sometimes that wall, it doesn't always spin you right away into that next best thing for you. Sometimes that wall comes at you, it smacks you, and you have to sit for a while on the sideline and say, all right, what the heck am I supposed to do now? And, I'll share a story about that. But in 2014, the way it works in Major League Baseball is you're contracted. So every year you get a contract for a year, 2 years, or 3 years. So back in 2014, we had a losing season, and my contract didn't get renewed. So here it is, my dream job with the Yanks. I got it as a 23-year-old kid. I'm the youngest strength coach and performance coach in sports. Living the dream, traveling with the Rolling Stones through my 20s. And all of a sudden I'm sitting with the GM, and he tells me, Dana, listen, here's the thing. He's like, it's not personal. It's just the way it works in business and sports. He's like, we got to make a change, and we're making a change now. So I in 2014, I smacked the wall, and the wall pushed me back, and I had to go figure my life out, right? Because I left college. I jumped into the Yankee universe. I'm traveling around the country, hanging with high-profile people, and all of a sudden, boom, you hit the wall. And you got to figure your life out. You're forced now again, but 10, 12 years later, to figure your life out. And you have all these experiences and all these different things now. And I had to take that step back to take a step forward. And at that point, you have to get really real with yourself. And it's a scary place to be. But, in doing so, it makes you better. So I always encourage people, when after you take a hit in any way, and it could be anything. It could be a medical hit. It could be an accident, anything that happens, getting laid off from a job, a divorce, a relationship, whatever it is. Don't start running again, because when you start running again, you're going to miss a lot of the lessons that you're supposed to experience. It's like people say, oh, when you get hit and knocked down, get right back up. You get back up, but don't start running. Start crawling, then walking, and eventually you'll start running and start sprinting again.
Great advice.
If you start running, you're going to miss a lot of the lessons, and you're going to kind of try to override those natural and normal feelings that you have. And that's when things get dangerous, because you have to feel that stuff. And in doing so, that's the real, and you can come back to yourself, and that generates a lot of strength.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. I love that. Okay. A few questions about champions, and this could be any of your clients or yourself or the athletes that you worked with. I'm curious, what types of people do champions surround themselves with?
Well, they oftentimes don't surround themselves with anybody but their family. Yeah,
Interesting.
that's something. Yeah, that I've seen a lot. I mean, when the higher you go up the chain, the smaller the circles are. I mean,
Mm,
typically everybody that I've seen, that's in my circle, it's pretty much family and maybe a couple people that have been in their life for a long, long time.
interesting. Is that a
Yeah,
trust thing or a time thing, or what's the reason with that?
I think it's a combination of both. But I also believe that they realize that they can't be everything for everybody. So they keep the people close to them that they want to share their time with, their knowledge, their experiences, and everything else. But there's only so much that they can give as people. And I think when we start to have too many people surrounding us in our circle,
Hmm.
we are going to feel like we're cutting somebody short. And how does that feeling make us feel now? Does it make us stronger or does it make us weaker? Because every champion wants to feel strong and powerful. So if we're not able to give what it is that we feel we need to give or want to give or should give,
Hmm.
it kind of puts a little bit of damage in your armor. So the small circles, and it's every one of them actually.
Mm,
They fly. A lot of them fly solo. Yeah, solo and
interesting.
just a family and a few people that have been around for a long time. Yeah,
And then I have a
and they're quick
question.
to cut
Uh-huh.
too.
They're quick to what?
I
Quick
was
to
going to say they're quick to cut.
to cut,
Yeah,
like cut people out
yeah,
of
yeah,
their
yeah,
life.
yeah. People that I don't want to say not people that don't serve them, but people that don't serve them well.
Mm, got
Yeah,
it. Got it.
so,
And then I
yeah,
have a question, and this is something I ask everybody on my show. So I'm curious what you would say, what your answer is going to be on here. So if
yeah.
somebody's at rock bottom, maybe it's like you, like they found out at age 19 that they're not going to be a pro player. Maybe that's was your rock bottom at the time, or maybe it's later on in their career, whatever they're working on is not going the way that they thought. They've had a huge financial hit. They've their marriage fell apart. Something rock bottom, and I'm sure you've dealt with this not only in your own life but with the people that you've coached. If you were to give them 3 pieces of advice on how they can actually start to level up and create everything from nothing, what would you tell them to do first?
Huh. The first thing is to figure out what it is that you want
Mm,
and start there because again, a lot of the people that I've coached, they don't know what they want and they're doing things for reasons that they can't even describe, and it's usually something deep within them that was maybe formed years and years before they actually hit rock bottom, that they feel that there's a gap and they can't close their own gap. So you got to get really clear on what you want,
okay.
and sometimes you don't need as much as you think you need. So
Yeah.
so the biggest thing is wherever you are and whenever you hit that rock bottom moment, you have to get real with yourself. You have to really think about the things that you want and that you need. And I do an exercise with everybody. Another one that
Mhm.
says, because typically financial stress is a big thing for people. I say, do me a favor, write down how much you're making now and let's figure out to live that dream life that you want. Write that down. And they realize that the number that they think they need is not actually as big as the number that's actual.
Wow.
So, and I think that goes for a lot of things, in your life. It's most people hit rock bottom and get stressed and flustered over it because they're trying to climb, Mount Everest when there's just a little hill they have to get over. And you can climb Mount Everest and you can climb a hill by taking just a little bit of steps every single day. I relate it to chopping down a big oak tree with a little axe. There's no
Mhm.
way you're going to go out there and chop that tree down in one day. But if you chop a little today, chop a little tomorrow, chop, 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 over time, that big tree hits the ground. So
I like
that's
that.
how you overcome anything in your life. And, I always say, get real with yourself and the rest will sort itself.
I love it. Okay, so your book, Habits
Yeah.
of a Champion, where can people get it?
They can get it on Amazon or they could get it on my website, danacavalea.com. And for anybody on the show, they could just put VIP discount and it takes 20%.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Dana, thank you so much.
Yep.
Super eye-opening. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for leveling up with us today. Please share this episode if you found it helpful so others can join in. And don't forget to hit that subscribe so you don't miss out on future shows. And if you would leave me a 5-star review, I appreciate those so much. I read all of them, and it's how I know that I'm giving you information that you find valuable. And come interact with me over on Instagram at Natalie Jill Fit. I read all the direct messages and comments over there. Make it a great day, creating everything from nothing.